Today we're going to talk about IM transitions. And really all I mean by IM transitions is going from one stroke to the next. So, there's three transitions in any IM: fly to back, back to breast, and breast to free. And I suppose if you want to get more specific, right, maybe the transition includes the last 10 or 15 yards or so of the stroke going into the wall and the first 10 or 15 yards or so of the next stroke coming off the wall. And, in my opinion, transitions are what makes or breaks an IM race, what makes or breaks someone executing a great IM, whether it's the 200 or the 400 IM. And when you talk about great 200 and 400 IMers, right, we got to talk about Ryan Lochte and Michael Phelps. I mean, between the two of them, they have the top 15 performances all time in the 200 meter IM. And it's pretty incredible. And they are world-class swimmers who have world-class strokes, for world-class strokes, but what separates them from the rest of the field, because that's not really what separates them from the rest of the IM field. What separates them from the rest of the IM field is their IM transitions, how well they go from one stroke to the next stroke. And that's something that takes, obviously, a ton of practice, right? They practice going in and out, going fly to back, going back to breast, going back to, or breast to free, and knowing exactly how that feels and exactly what needs to get done. And that's what makes them great. And in my opinion, there's three things that kind of define a great transition. Number one is your turn. How good is your turn? Number two is your underwaters. How consistent can you be in your underwaters? Not necessarily how much can you blast or crush in underwater, but how consistent can you be in an underwater? And number three is practice. Practice. All right. First, we're going to talk about turns. And when we talk about turns in an IM, the first thing we need is to know our stroke count. We need to know exactly how many strokes we take per 25 in each stroke, or per 50 if we're talking long course, because we need to know how to make an adjustment, because we always want to hit that wall on a full stroke. We always want to hit that wall, whether it's a fly to fly or a fly to back, right? Whether it's a transition or not, we want to hit it on a full stroke. That's going to maximize our speed into the wall and conserve that momentum coming off the wall. And so knowing our stroke count is vitally important, right? Every time you're doing an IM set, really anytime you're doing a stroke set, getting a sense for how many strokes you take in that fly as you're heading into the wall, getting a stroke for how many takes in that back as you're heading into the wall, getting a stroke for how many, get a sense of how many strokes you take in breast coming into the wall for freestyle, right? So that's super, super important. And we want to make sure that we're not just guessing, right? And that's what the best IMers do really, really well, is they're not guessing when they're hitting the wall, fly to back, back to breast, breast to free. They know when they're going to hit, because that way they can make an adjustment stroke. Say you take 13 strokes in your fly, and you're at the flags and you're only at 10 strokes. Well, you probably got to make an adjustment. So take your short stroke there so you can hit 2 full strokes and hit that wall at full speed. Don't make that adjustment stroke on your last stroke. That's going to jeopardize how much turn speed you have. Okay, and then getting in and out of the wall, obviously important. We want to make sure that we can get in and out of the wall fast. But the other thing we need to make sure that we can do is be consistent in our underwaters. Like I said earlier, it's not about blasting the underwaters. It's not about hitting 15 meters off of every wall in an IM. It's certainly not in a 400 IM. It's about being consistent, having a consistent number, having it powerful, and having it fit in part of your race plan. All right, and that's what brings us to practice. Transitions are about practice. Transitions are about how many times, how many reps can you get going fly to back, going back to breast, going breast to free, so you know how your body responds to it, right? Because it's incredibly important going from a short axis stroke like fly into a long axis stroke like backstroke to know how to maintain your tempo, know how to come off the wall on backstroke at an appropriate backstroke racing tempo, appropriate to your racing strategy. And same thing, breast to free. knowing how to come off of that longer, slow tempo, short axis breaststroke stroke into a shorter, high tempo freestyle stroke. I think that those are huge keys, and getting a sense of what fits and what makes sense for you, it comes down to actually practicing IAM or practicing IAM in practice. There are tons of people who are great at all 4 strokes, who, you know, even we're talking about national and world class level in 4 strokes, but can't put together the IAM that a Phelps or a Lochte or a Katinka Hasu have, because they're not putting in the work in the transitions. And if you put in the work in the transitions, you have great turns, you're consistent in your underwaters, and you know how your body responds, and you can develop an appropriate race strategy to that, to respond to how you know your body transfers from fly to back to breast, and breast to free. You're going to be able to hide any weaknesses. You may have a weak stroke, you may have a weak backstroke or breaststroke, and you're going to be able to hide those weaknesses better with a great transition. And that's going to take you from you know, maybe an average IAMer to a much better IAMer. You know, really what an IAM comes down to is how well can you execute that transition. Because if you can execute each of your transitions perfectly, you're going to improve your IAM, you know, incredibly, just by working on transitions, not even improving the individual strokes. Obviously, we want to improve our individual strokes. That's a huge part of getting better IAM and getting better at swimming as a whole. All right, but if you're looking to bring that IAM to the next level, you know, step 1, work on those transitions. Make sure your transitions, you can crush your turns, you know what your stroke count is. You can have consistent underwaters coming off of every single wall in that IAM, 200, 400 IAM, long course or short course. And 3, that you practice that transition over and over and over again. You know exactly how fly to back feels. You know exactly how back to breast feels. You know exactly how breast to free feels. I mean, we're not even really going to touch on the crossover turn. That's a part of it, right? We want to get that crossover turn better, but that's going to come with the practice. That's going to come with everything else that we're doing. All right. So that's our deeper dive into IAM transitions.